Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a review of the Kiwi Ears Quintet. Of course, I want to start with an unboxing, but just to generally let you guys know, this is a quad brid driver, the first that I've tried. Has a PZT, planar, BA, and dynamic driver, and I think Kiwi Ears is kind of becoming a fan favorite for their relatively affordable options and just great quality overall. I think these look really beautiful with that silver faceplate black chassis, comes with a nice cable, pretty good ear tips, and the Kiwi Ears carrying case. Let's check them out. So again, to reiterate, a very unique IEM, a quad brid driver, one planar, one PZT, one dynamic, one BA. A fit that does feel very comfortable for long durations of time. And you guys can see just out of the gate, I want to bring this up, it does have a fish mouth nozzle there with a little bit of a film over it. Now, that type of a nozzle is very easily morphed in terms of its sound and presentation with certain ear tips. The default shorter ear tip with a wider bore out of the box, I did not really have an enjoyable experience in game. Transitioning to the ones that had a little bit of a longer stem and not as wide of a bore, the dome-shaped ear tips, I actually did have a much better experience. Now, just to get out of the way, let's talk about music. Music is a very nice experience on this quad brid. The soundstage, you feel as though you are there. Male vocals are some of the best that I've heard in this price range. And in terms of a bass response, you have a very nice visceral feeling experience with bass guitar and drum hits. An IEM that feels very, very good for music listening purposes. If you're watching YouTube videos, Netflix, this would be probably one of my best recommendations in that price range. And if you are interested in having an IEM for those purposes, I think looking at the Quintet for gaming is an okay option. Now, getting into gaming, again, I say an okay option because it does have its flaws in Apex as well as Valorant. Again, with the dome-shaped ear tips, I actually did have a good experience in Valorant. I would actually recommend these for Valorant if you are wanting an IEM for music, entertainment, and gaming. I think the experience it provides with that ear tip in particular is a good one. And that's because the sound space in Valorant is not quite as expansive, not quite as far. There's not as much verticality as something like Apex. Apex, there is a lot going on, and when you have third parties, fourth parties, people opening doors, people below you at a little bit of a distance, popping a shield cell, hearing all of that actually really is the difference of winning a fight and losing a fight. Because if you do crack somebody, they fall off, and they begin healing, knowing the priority of what's around you, and if you can safely get to that person to eliminate them and have now a 2v3v3 in a third-party situation, it can make the difference of winning a fight or losing a fight. Now, in Valorant, again, a pretty good experience. You'll notice compared to the Orchestra Lights, it is an experience that does not feel quite as loud around you. So footsteps do fall off a little bit, but it's not as bad as it is in Apex. The imaging in Valorant happens to be quite good. You get a nice sense of presentation in terms of depth. Verticality, there's, again, not that much, so it's not really that big of a deal. So a passable IEM for Valorant. I don't feel that the separation becomes too much of an issue. Op shots can be a little bit, cause a little bit of an issue if you're trying to listen to very faint things around you. But overall, a pretty good IEM with the dome-shaped ear tip for Valorant. When we transition to Apex Legends, in comparing it to things even like the Kiwi Ears Orchestra Lite, it just falls behind. You'll notice as soon as you get into the game, the sound space around you is a little bit lower. You can turn up the power, and again, it's still going to feel a little bit lower. The things around you just don't have as much emphasis as they do on something like the Kiwi Ears Orchestra Lite. Everything sounds phenomenal in terms of the overall frequency, but there are issues in terms of separation, fall off, as well as a little bit of depth perception and verticality compared to something like the Orchestra Lite. So again, the sound stage is a little bit just not as emphasized, not as immersive as something like the Orchestra Lite. And how that has an impact is as people kind of get further away from you, there's a little bit too much of a audio fall off on footsteps or opening doors, taking zip lines, popping shield cells. So when they get to a certain distance that you should still be able to hear those things very loudly on something like the Orchestra Lite, you just lose too much on the Quintet, and that could be, again, the difference of, in my opinion, a win or a loss. Now, in terms of separation, when you are shooting people and you have audio cues coming from your perspective, they are a little bit louder than everything around you, again, because of that fall off, and it's hard to pick up people coming behind you. You even lose audio on your teammates' footsteps that are right next to you. If you're popping a shield cell or popping a shield battery, you're popping Q on Octane, you're taking a Horizon Q, there's just too much that kind of overwhelms the sound space, and you lose things that, again, are at a certain distance, and it is very noticeable compared to something like the Zen's Top, the Orchestra Lite, even the Dunu Vulcan. And I think for that reason, they're not going to be very high up on my Wallhack tier list. In fact, the Wallhack tier list, I think I'm going to kind of stop adding to unless something gets past the top 5. I think I would take the Sequel Dawn Pros over the Quintet, the Dunu Vulcan, the Rapido Hook X. But overall, a very good IEM still, nonetheless, just not one that I think gets higher on my list, and it's not something that will surpass its cousin, the Kiwi Ears Orchestra Lite. I think if you are looking for a quad-brid IEM, one of its kind, I've not seen a IEM that sounds this good for music at this price point. That's still good for gaming. Certainly, I could recommend these. It's just not something for the purposes of our channel, the purposes of the Wallhack tier list, that I'm going to add to the Wallhack tier list right now. There's just too many options, I feel, that we've tried, including, again, the Orchestra Lite, that I think pass it in all of those areas. Because of that fall off in Apex, you do have a few issues in terms of depth perception. I've noticed that directly comparing them to the Zen's Top and the Orchestra Lite, when somebody is shooting at a distance, either on height, below me, same level, I just feel that as I'm whipping my crosshair into that region, it's just way more accurate of a presentation of depth from that audio cue from a distance. I feel like verticality loses a little bit as well, somewhat because of that audio fall off, but the verticality just felt better, more emphasized, more urgent and emergent of what I need to focus on the Orchestra Lite, the Zen's Top, the Dunu Vulcan, as well as the Rapido Hook X. A very good IEM, a very good IEM for its price point, for the overall experience, just not one, I think, that will be surpassing other options for the sole competitive gaming experience. So that's really going to be it for this one, guys. Again, an experience in game, when you get in, everything just seems a little bit lower and a little bit further away in terms of the space and the emphasis, and overall just to hit on separation, verticality, as well as, again, primarily that audio fall off, which I think was its biggest issue next to separation. I hope this video helped. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace.